All right, I would like to formally welcome everyone, and this is one of the largest Zoom calls I think I've been on in a while, to Jaden's final senior project presentation. For those who don't know, Jaden's going to be continuing his education in the fall down in Florida at FIT, where he's going to continue to pursue his aviation career, hopes, dreams, and all that good stuff. I'm excited. It's been a pleasure this year to work with Jaden on his project and see somebody chase their passion. So with that, just so everybody knows, I have muted everybody except for Jaden. And I'm going to then now turn this meeting over to Jaden. And I hope you all sit back and are completely blown away by the amount of work that Jaden has done so far this year. So with that, Jaden, it is all you, kiddo.
All right. Thank you, Stins. That is Mr. Stinson, for all that don't know, my senior project teacher. And then in the middle of one of the screens is Ben Allen, who is my senior project advisor. They both helped me throughout the whole process, so I will certainly talk about them more. But before we get started, I want you guys to know I do have pants on, and I have a nice tie clip that you can see. It's an airplane I got from my parents, so I'm all prepared and pantsed up. So I'm going to share my screen, and I hope you can all see it. And if you can't, please say something. It's starting shortly. Alrighty. So, if anyone's not good, please speak now or hold your peace. Okay, so my presentation is called Air Jaden, and I have to start by thanking my mom for that name. I have loved basketball since I was born, and Michael Jordan and all that, so we kind of, I don't know if we stole it, but we sort of did. And when I was coming to name this presentation, she gave me that name probably the first day. So that was very helpful because Air Jaden has a mixture of basketball and flying, because obviously air, flying connect hand in hand. So I'm going to start right now. So where did the passion begin? On the left there was a picture of my mom holding me in my uncle's first airplane, Uncle Ed, who is going to be known pretty well at the end of this presentation. But she's holding me there, and I'm not even a year old at that point, and you can tell all I did was look out the window because I found it so amazing. By the time I was 4, the passion only grew. There's me and my dad in front of an American 757, and I don't think you can find a kid that's smiling bigger than me when we're at the airport. So those are two pretty iconic photos. I'm happy that my parents are in both of them. And where's the passion going? So every time I fly commercially, I'm always asking the pilots ahead of the flight or after the flight if I can take pictures or even just get to talk to them, because it's really the best part of the flight for me is talking to the pilots. So every time I go up there, it's kind of like a new experience every time, but I love it. And so the passion is going towards being a pilot. I'm not sure if I want to do commercial aviation or corporate or both. Probably both would be the dream. People often ask me why not the military, and I keep saying in another lifetime I would, and I feel like I just have to be 100% in to go into the military, and if I'm not, I shouldn't do it because I'd rather not serve. I'm not 100% in. So in another lifetime, Air Force would definitely be at the top of my list, but for now I'm sticking to commercial, general, and corporate aviation. So that's me last year in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and then Delta Airbus A320 taking a picture with the pilots. The pilots are super friendly, which is awesome because I love people too, so it's good to see that it's sort of connecting to me. So when I came time to start this project, I knew I would definitely want to incorporate flying, and I wasn't sure how I could do this because I could go after my private pilot's license, which is what I'm doing as part of it, but I felt like in a sense it was almost a little selfish just because it was so one-sided in me getting or working on getting my pilot's license. So I had to ask myself, how can I give back? Because aviation has given me so much. I'll show you in the upcoming slides. But on the left there, in the bottom left, is my uncle's plane, Uncle Ed, and that plane has really opened me up to the skies, literally and physically, because I'm in it all the time, and that's really what opened the door. On the right there is just a really cool picture of a private jet taking off from Oxford. We went to an air show, like a mini air show sort of last year, my dad, my uncle, and I, and there were hangars behind us with a couple private jets in them, and there was like an air show happening in front of us with some older military planes, and I was more astonished by the jets that were behind us in the hangar park, just because they're so amazing to me, the private jets. I was more astonished by those than the actual air show happening in front of us. So I don't know, it's just really amazing to me. So I'm always taking pictures. And so, like I said, aviation's given me so much. I have a couple pictures here of some of the best shots I've taken, just because that's like the best part to me, or one of the best parts of flying is the ever-changing views. That's in Puerto Vallarta last year in the mountains of Mexico. This looks like water, but this is in my uncle's plane over Connecticut, believe it or not. Those are clouds, which is really cool. This was arguably the best photo I've ever taken out of my uncle's plane. That is over New Hampshire a couple of years ago. And then this one I took literally 2 nights ago with some of my friends at the Roxbury Airport, and I'm trying to trade this picture for a flight because I think that would be really cool. So like I said, aviation's given me so much. I keep asking myself, how can I give back? So one of the ways that instantly hit my head was animal rescue flights, which are exactly what they sound like. I've been doing them for years with my uncle, and what they are flights between different pilots, general aviation pilots they're called, like my uncle who just does it for fun and a hobby. And they meet up along anywhere in the country. Pilots meet up and transport animals to shelter. So that first one there is actually 12 sea turtles that my uncle and I flew from Marshfield, Massachusetts, which is right outside of Boston, to East Hampton, Long Island, in New York. That was about 1.5 years ago. And it was pretty neat. The big green container on the bottom left was a big sea turtle, one of them. And then all the other ones had about, I don't know, a couple turtles in each crate. And they had to have blankets over them to keep them warm. So it's really cool to see the process of how it worked. This was a dog and a cat, one of each, and I don't remember where this one was going from, but I believe it was going from Easton, Maryland to Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And oftentimes when these animals, we pick them up in, Maryland or DC or somewhere in that area just because it's not that far from us, but usually they originate from much further locations, which I'll talk about soon. This is, again, the turtles we were dropping off, and it's amazing to see everyone at the airport, all the ramp agents are instantly like, oh, I want to help this plane. They're on the ground helping parking planes, but when they see animals get out, it kind of changes the game. They all want in, they all want to help. So that's pretty cool to see. Like, I'm supposed to be one of the first ones helping since I'm flying the plane and stuff, but there's no room for me to help because everyone there wants to help. It's so cool. This is 3 dogs. Actually, it's 4 beagles. And there's a funny story to this one. Well, I don't think funny is the right word, but it is now. When we flew these 4 beagles up to Portland, Maine, 1.5 years ago or so, and they each had leashes. We were giving them to the shelter's owner, and they all had leashes, so we were holding them. They don't weigh much, so we could easily hold 2 per person, one on each. And one of them actually escaped the leash on the tarmac of the airport and was running towards the runway. And this airport has commercial jets taking off, so that was quite the scene. Luckily, the dog came back, but it was heading straight for the runway, so that was kind of scary at the time. But now I guess we can call it a funny story. And that's the kitten that we did. I believe that kitten is on the same flight as the photo on the left there, the dog and the cat. So I'm going to talk more about these animal rescue flights in depth and sort of how they work shortly. So I figured after that, I could take my social media, which I love, like videos and photography, and then the passion for animals and rescue, and then mix it with my passion for aviation. So my focus for the year was showcasing ways in which pilots can help the community through videos and social media, which I think I did a pretty good job of, but I definitely don't want it to stop after this year. So I set myself 3 objectives this year. One, and this is most important for me, is my pilot's license. Not necessarily obtaining it by the end of the year, but working on it. I'll talk a lot about what goes into that. It's a lot more than the driving license per se. But I'll talk about that. My second one was rescuing animals, and I was going to try to coordinate some flights myself or help my uncle out best I could and sort of dig into that process and how it worked because I always enjoyed it so much. I wanted to see really what was behind it. And then filmmaking and videography, that was my third credential, but even though I have them listed 1, 2, 3, they all go hand in hand, so it's not like one was more important than the other throughout the year. And this one was where I needed the most help, which is where my technical advisor came in, Ben Allen. I wanted to figure out a way to take the pictures and the amazing views that I was getting and sort of share them. I have a lot to talk about with that too, so we'll get to it. So the first one is becoming a pilot. And real quick, I need a sip of Propel. All right. So basically, there are 3 private pilot license requirements, or 3 things you have to do to get your private pilot's license. The first is a written exam, and that I took before my training last year, before I began my training. You don't have to take it before, but my uncle, my parents, and I figured that it would make more sense just to get it over and done with. And you also learn a lot before you even step foot in the plane. So that exam I'll get into, but I passed that last summer before I began my training. And then the second credential is 40 or more hours of flight training. I'll break that down, but I've already completed that. So that's the second thing you need to have. And then the third, which I'm preparing for now, I'm scheduling it hopefully this coming week, is my check ride or oral exam. And a check ride is basically I'm flying the plane and there's an examiner in a seat next to me requesting different maneuvers or types of landings and stuff like that, seeing me plan out a flight. And then the oral exam is, I don't know this for sure because I haven't taken it, but I would say the hardest part, probably the part I'll be most nervous about. But I have 2 hours before I take off in the plane. I have to plan out a flight and answer any questions that the examiner could ask me. So it's really in depth, but it does make sense that it goes hand in hand with the check ride because part of the oral exam is planning out a flight. So that picture on the right there is I took like an online course to prepare for the private pilot written exam, and that was the endorsement for me to take the test, saying I completed the course July 18th, and then the 19th I passed. And the picture on the left there is a picture I took going to Danbury. I believe I was solo actually that day, and that was actually right after I flew over one of my friends' houses and circled. The Schurs, I'm sure they'll mind the shout out, but they took a video of me circling their house, which is really cool. So like I said, the opportunities are kind of endless in the air. So the first one, like I said, was the written exam. And this covers anything from airspace to regulations, aerodynamics of the airplane, the weather, sectional charts, performance of the airplane. There's so much on it. It was a bank of, I believe, 250 questions, but the test only had 60, and you had to get I believe it was a 70 or better to pass. I passed that pretty well. And on the right, there's a certificate from the FAA, or Federal Aviation Administration, saying I passed it on my first take, which was pretty exciting. I actually had this test right before vacation, so it was kind of make or break the vacation. But luckily, I did pretty well on it. There's a lot to it, though, and I've been talking to some kids that are going to Florida Tech next year to also study aviation, and a lot of them haven't taken this test yet, so it's kind of a big relief that they already did. So I kind of was ahead of the game as my uncle and parents planned, so that I can thank them for that. Helped prepare me pretty well. The next is probably the most complicated part, is the 40 or more hours of flight training. So if you break it down a little bit, it's 20 or more hours of dual training, which is me with an instructor, and some of those require cross-country flights, which are not cross-country. I think they should change the name. But it's really a cross-country flight at my level is just considered 50 miles or more straight. So for example, from Danbury to Groton, which is right near Mystic, Connecticut, is about 65, just to give some perspective on it. Some other requirements of the dual training include night flying, so we have to have at least 3 hours of that. I think I have 4. And then instrument training, which is just a little intro to instrument flying, which is a whole new level. That's after your private pilot's license. It enables you to fly in clouds and bad weather and stuff like that. But so I have completed those 20 or more hours of flight dual training. And then it also, in those 40 hours, requires 10 or more hours of solo flight, which is exactly what it sounds like, me by myself. And then 5 or more of those have to be solo cross country. And this sentence is going to be really confusing, but I'll break it down a little bit. So out of those 5 hours of solo flight, 1 solo flight of at least 50 nautical miles total distance with full stop landings at 3 points, and 1 segment of at least 50 miles between takeoffs and landings. Okay, now you're saying, what the heck is he saying? I am saying that I have to do a flight of at least 150 miles total distance. So the one I had planned out was about 165. And I have to land and come to a full stop at 3 different airports. And 1 segment, or 1 leg, 1 flight, has to be at least 50 miles. So I will go over how I did that. This is a map of the flight that I actually had been planning on for about, 3 months now. But due to weather cancellations, I was able to get it in Monday or Sunday, which was really cool. So I started in Danbury there on the left, and then flew that purple leg first to Groton, Connecticut, which is 65 miles. So that compiles the 50-plus mile requirement. And then I went up to Windham, Connecticut, right there, that top circle. And that's right outside of Storrs or Yukon. It's up in that area. And then I flew back to Danbury. So there's a lot more that goes into flying than just flying the airplane. When you drive, you get in the car and you're ready to go. When you fly, that is not at all the case. There's a lot that goes into it, such as, well, for a cross-country flight, I have to do planning for it, cross-country planning, which is something that's going to be on my test. And I'm going to break that down soon. But there's an app here called ForeFlight, which is where this map is coming from. And ForeFlight shows me everything. I use it when I fly, I use it before I fly, I use it after I fly. So I have a video here, and I'm hoping you guys can hear it. I'm going to explain it after, but if you can't hear it, try turning up your volume as much as you can, because mine is very soft. But if like no one can hear it, I don't know, I kind of would like to know somehow. But
So before each of my cross-country flights, I have to fill out a navigation log for each leg of the flight. So for this flight, I had 3 different legs, or 3 different airports I was going to. And to fill them out, you start by getting a map, which I have here, a sectional chart of the New York area. Looks pretty busy because it is. So I map out where I'm going. So this one was Danbury to Groton, and then up to Wyndham and back. So that's the triangle there. And then I calculate navigational points based on literal physical things I can see out the window, such as lakes or rivers. And then I take that to the charts, and then I calculate how long it'll take me to get from each spot, how long distance-wise it is, my heading based on the winds at certain altitudes and all that. So to do that, I have my iPad here, and I can find the wind data. So this is the Northeast region, and then we're under Bradley International Airport. That's where we're close to, 6,000 feet right here. So I use my wind data, and then I use my cruise performance data of the airplane I'm flying, and I use some handy tools such as this chart plotter and this E6B to find my wind and fuel I need and everything like that. So it's a lot, but it's something that we have to learn.
it was over anyway, but could you guys hear that? I don't even know how to check.
Yes, it was.
What's that?
Yes, it was great.
Oh, okay, cool. You guys could hear it? Awesome. So I'll kind of review it really quickly if anyone couldn't hear it. My parents were sitting across the table and they couldn't because of my iPad. But basically what you have to do is for these cross-country flights at my level, the most basic level, is you have a chart, and it's called a navigation log. And on that log, you have a map, and with the map, you draw a straight line, as you can see there in the middle of the screen, from point A to point B, so Danbury to Groton. And then every 10, 15, 20 miles, you pick a point outside, such as a lake or a river or a busy city, and then you put those on the chart. You plot them out from point A to point B, so there's about 5 in between. So there are about 5 in between Danbury and Groton. And then what you do with that is you calculate how long it should take you based on your speed. And pretty much everything you do in an airplane is based on the wind. So I went over to my iPad to find the wind, because every couple hours the wind is updated for every region in the world, really. So you take the wind, and then you calculate how much fuel you'll need, how much time it'll take you, and so that way when you fly, you actually have the checklist next to you. It's sort of just like a GPS, but handmade beforehand. It's a good way to have a backup to any GPS that you might have in an airplane, and it's something I'll have to do on my test. So really recently I've been working on this a lot, and I actually planned out the same flight like 6 times because I train in such a small airplane that the wind has canceled my flight about 50% of the time. So even though I've canceled the flight a lot, I've gotten a lot of practice doing this. So it's kind of helped in a way. So you're probably asking how far into it are you since you've been talking about how much you've done. So there's a little timeline. Like I said, July 19th, I passed the written exam. August 5th, I began my flight training at Danbury. And I trained in a 152 for the most part. Sometimes I fly a 172, but I fly a 152. As you can see, it's very small, but it's really good to learn, and you can really understand the basics when you start small. This was probably the most memorable day. November 17th was my first solo flight. That one as well had been planned out for a while, but the wind or weather kept changing it. It seemed like every time it was a nice day, it was windy, and every time it wasn't windy, it was raining. So that happened November 17th. My parents were there, and that was really cool. And then February 17th, I actually did my first solo cross country, but that one was just to Columbia County, New York, which is outside of Albany. It wasn't like that far per se. But like I said, last week or Sunday, I did that long cross country, which was really a pretty big milestone. So now you're asking yourself, what I get a lot at school, can you fly me yet? Or what's going on here? Because I see you're taking people sometimes, I see you're not. What's the deal? So first, when I take people, it's with my uncle. He's very nice. He lets me take my friends a lot. But I cannot take anyone yet. I'm really close. So this is a picture of my log book, which every pilot has, every single pilot. And it shows, I'll kind of break it down a little bit. The left column is just the date. And then it reads across as the type of aircraft, the call sign of the aircraft, your route of flight. And then it keeps going to the right, and just any endorsements or remarks. So you can see one of them says solo cross country. Some of them say full stop landings. And then the numbers right next to it are the number of landings and takeoffs. And it took me a couple flights to realize that however many landings you have or takeoffs, it should be the same for landings. which I guess makes sense. And then right next to it is the most important column. Actually the last column is the most important one, but this is the same, is the amount of flight time. So that's really what you're counting here, is your flight time. Like I said, you need 40 hours of training to get your license. I already have 59 and a half, and I'm really close to my check ride. The reason I have so many more than 40 is because of the cancellations. I don't really want to step, especially with Corona lately, I don't want to step in an airplane 4 weeks after being in it last solo. So I like to go with an instructor just to check me out. And then on the middle of the screen, but the right half of the page, is my instructor's signature. And then if you keep going across, you can read the type of piloting time. So the cross-country flights get their own column. The dual received, which is with an instructor, gets its own column. And then pilot in command or solo also gets its own. So I have the solo requirement, 11.2 met. So I really do have every requirement in the book done, except for my 5 hours of solo cross-country. I only have about 4. So I'm planning on one more solo cross-country flight. And then it's on to scheduling my check ride. And then once I pass that check ride, I will be able to take people with me. Essentially, I'd have to rent a plane, so it could be pretty costly. But I know a lot of friends really want to go up with me, so it's something I'm really looking forward to doing. And if all goes well, it's definitely going to be before I leave for school in the fall. All right, so part 2. I'm sure you guys are probably pretty confused about part 1, but it's okay. I still am sometimes. So part 2, Pilots in Pause, which is the animal rescue flights. So Pilots in Pause is an online organization that connects pilots all over the country, general aviation pilots they call them, who do it just for a hobby and have small planes. And what it does, it's just an online forum that allows pilots to schedule and coordinate flights with each other to move animals, mostly dogs, but some cats, and as I mentioned, turtles even. So the way my uncle and I have it, we both have it set up similarly, is we both have our own account, but on our accounts we have like a bulletin board, and on the bulletin board we get reminders or notifications of when new flights are coming in, or trip requests. And so we have it so that if there's a trip that's happening within 250 miles of Oxford, where his plane is, we get the notification. So on our email. So for example, every day I get in between 2 to 10 emails of trip requests, which is pretty sad, honestly, because it's all animals that either don't have homes or have something wrong with them that they need to get fixed or something like that. But so every flight is kind of sad in a way, but it's really inspirational at the end of the day. So for example, here we can go to the first one that we did this year as part of the project, was Millie. So we flew down to Maryland, and then we brought this puppy, this black Labrador, to a home in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. So that top left photo is my uncle on the right holding the package that says Millie with the dog in between his arms. And on his right, or our left, is the pilot who flew the dog from, I believe it was North Carolina, up to Maryland. So it's cool to see the dog goes through so many different flights and stuff, and all these people care so much just about usually one dog or one animal. And then we brought him to Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Is that photo on the top right. There's a lady there who's super excited to receive the dog and foster it, or whatever the case may be. I don't remember specifically for this dog, but this was the first time we did it on October 5th. So the way we would have signed up for this flight was we would have gotten an email, and on that email you click like see more or something at the bottom. And then when you click that, it brings you to a sheet. And on the sheet, it has all the dog's information. It's date of birth, how old it is now, what type of dog it is, a picture of it usually, where it has to go from and to, if there's any conditions with it. Most of them, luckily, there are no conditions. There's just not enough homes in the South for them. It's pretty sad to see, for the most part, how animals are treated in the South versus up here in the North, which is why 90% of them are taken to the North. This map that I actually skipped on the bottom here shows just in one day how many flights happened with the Pilots in Pause organization. And as you can see, most of the arrows are going south to north. And they're all over the country, which is really cool. But we have it filtered down to 250 miles because we don't need to see the flights going from Vegas to Utah. So the first time we did was Millie, and Millie was puppy, and it was a really good flight. We made a video for this one, which I'll get into soon. Second one we did was Oakley. And this was when my uncle and I flew to Ithaca, New York, and brought what was an Australian Shepherd to Farmingdale. And we were at the airport in Ithaca asking the owners, because we were actually picking up from the owners, why we were doing this flight. Why don't you guys want the dog anymore, essentially? And they were saying that this dog was just way too hyper and had way too much energy for their small house that they lived in. So as sad as that sounded, I guess it was good that they knew they were doing the right thing, giving the dog a better lifestyle. Again, I have a really short clip. It might be a little choppy or sounding a little weird because it's in an airplane, but it kind of shows how the dogs fly.
We are crossing the Catskill Mountains as we have a new passenger in the back, Oakley, who is 2 years old, and we are on our way to Farmingdale, New York.
15,000, sending 14,000.
So a lot of people ask, like, dogs in an airplane. A lot of people don't even want to step foot in an airplane. How are you getting the dogs in an airplane? And it's pretty amazing. The dogs actually sleep pretty much the whole flight. If they ever make a sound, it's pretty remarkable. They really don't. It's pretty loud in the airplane, which is why people wear headsets, but the dogs don't mind. They really don't, especially the turtles. They were really quiet. But the dogs are really good in the back, even in the winter when it's cold and all that. They were really good. So Oakley was really big dog, really full of energy, but we actually brought it to a shelter in Farmingdale, and we found out, I don't know where the dog is now, but we found out that the dog went somewhere else to find even a better place for him. So as sad as it was, it's good that the owners knew that the dog was, had a better lifestyle in mind. And so that was, I don't know, that was kind of a different type of flight since it was a little different, but it was cool. This is the most recent one, and this is definitely my favorite one of the year for many reasons. Aragon was a part husky, part Australian Shepherd puppy. And so there's quite the story to this dog. I tried to do as much research as I could before and after. So this dog was, like I said, a puppy, originated in Corpus Christi, Texas. And we were the 11th flight for this dog to find a new leg in New York. It had a broken left leg, or actually it was dislocated, but it didn't. No one in the South really, for lack of a better term, cared. The dog was stray, so it was just kind of wandering around with a broken leg. And when we were with him, it was so adorable. It was the softest dog I've ever touched, and it was a puppy. It was a really good dog. So when we brought him, he was kind of limping here and there, but it was almost like he didn't even notice he was limping. It was really tough to see, but it was a really cool flight because we brought him all the way to New York, where there was a hospital and orthopedic surgeon to take care of him. And they did fix the leg, but it wasn't as bad as they originally thought, which was good. So I'm assuming, I don't know at this point, but I'm assuming it has a home now because it was in a shelter for a little while. I really do want to find out. I did email. They didn't get back to me, but they did talk to my uncle, so I can figure out more about that because I know people always have questions about this dog. But I'm going to go back into these flights after because a little more like go into them. But essentially each one starts with an email that is blasted out by the Pilots and Pods organization, and then pilots just sign up. My uncle will put, I can do the last leg, for example, say I can do the last leg from point A to point B or whatever. Then another pilot will say, okay, how does Saturday the 12th sound at 8 in the morning? Generally the flights are in the morning because the weather's a little better. So it's really cool just to see the pilots communicate with each other on a nonprofit organizational website. So I really dug into that this year and did some research on how that goes. And it's as simple as it sounds. Sometimes it gets confusing because it is nonprofit. It's not very organized, but it was really cool to see. And a lot of flights happen every day, as that map showed earlier. So the third part, which is arguably be the biggest part into all this, is the filmmaking. So like I said, I knew I wanted to incorporate all the amazing pictures and scenes that I was able to see firsthand and kind of share them with people. And all right, I'll go into it more, but so this is where my technical advisor, Ben Allen, really comes in. All these pictures on the screen are taken by him. He came with us on that last flight when we did that dog from New Jersey to New York, the dog with the broken leg. So these pictures are really amazing, and that's him in the middle there. He was loving it. He had a great time. So it was really nice that he was able to come. But he was, Stintz often says this, my teacher, that TAs are usually either sounding boards or experts, and he was both for me. He is an expert in filmmaking. He's the school's photographer, and he does a lot of other jobs as well. But he's a school photographer, and he's really good at video making. So in the beginning of the year, I wasn't really sure who to have as a technical advisor. I didn't know who I wanted. I don't know if I wanted someone that was in the aviation industry or someone I could just talk to every day that I would see every day, or I don't know. And Ben Allen went to Shepaug and graduated a few years ago, and Stintz recommended him, and it was probably the best recommendation I could have gotten because he was always helping me throughout the year, and there was never really more than a week or two where I wouldn't talk to him. I talked to him all the time, and he helped me with the video making. So every video I've released, people say it's getting better and better. And although I'm the one editing it, he's the one that's really the brains behind them. He helped me plan out videos and stuff. And these 4 pictures here I've used over and over just because they're so good. And they're pictures that he took, so I can't thank him enough for those. So how I film, the power of the action camera, the GoPro. I've always had a GoPro, and so I knew coming into the year I wanted another one because these are some of the photos I've been able to take with the GoPro. I'll show you what I use to film with these GoPros, but on the left there is just a flight. Actually, I brought Chris Marchese on that flight. We were going, where were we going? Somewhere in Massachusetts just for breakfast. Sounds funny, but you just get really cool views. You can mount them on the window. The middle one there, I just took a selfie with the dog, which is not really like me. I'm not a big selfie guy, but it came out so cool with the airplanes in the background, and that's Millie, that first dog. And then on the right there is one of my favorite angles of just inside the cockpit, and it's all thanks to the GoPro. So I knew coming into the year, I had that GoPro on the left, a Hero 4, which is already pretty old, but I knew I wanted another one, so I bought another one. I did some research to find one more affordable for me, and I got one. That's really great. And then that top left thing, I know you're looking at these things like, what the heck are they? That top left thing is a suction cup mount, which I use all the time. It sticks to the window of any airplane, and I mount the GoPro to it, and it's pretty simple. I just turn it on and it's going, and that's really a great angle because you can get inside or outside or whatever you want. The thing in the middle there is a clamp mount, and that I also use. I can clamp that to pretty much anything in the airplane. I use the back of the seat a lot, and I can twist and turn that top part to capture whatever I want. And then that right thing is the most important part of the whole filmmaking process, is a cord that connects the sound from the cockpit to the video. So you can hear, in a lot of my videos, you can hear the pilots talking to the air traffic control, and it's thanks to that cord, which is about $4. So that was probably the best part of the whole thing. But there's a lot more that goes into it than just setting up your cameras, though, because you don't want to set up your camera and then realize after the fact that it wasn't positioned perfectly and you wasted a whole flight. So there's a lot more planning, as Ben helped me with, that goes into this. So when it came time to edit my videos, I wasn't really sure which platform or software to use. So I ended up I made 8 videos this year, 7 during the senior project work year. And I think I used 6 or 7 different editing softwares. It was kind of part of one of my goals to experiment with new ones, and Ben really helped me. And this really connects to the problem solving part of the Shepaug Learner Outcomes, because every single time I used the new software, there was a different style to it. So it always took me a while. That first video I did, each animal flight I made a video, and the first one of Millie took me like probably 7 hours to edit in Shepaug, and I was using one of the Apple computers there. I remember my friends were at a soccer game, like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm just trying to edit this video," and it kept taking forever, but it's because I keep trying new softwares. So I've used, at the top there is Adobe, iMovie. I used apps on my iPad, which is kind of crazy because usually edit on a computer, but I was able to do a lot, and Ben really helped me experiment with them. So it was good to get that exposure before I go away next year, because I certainly want to continue making videos. I just needed that good start and direction. So there's, like everything, there's a lot that goes into editing videos, and the first most important one is sound. And Ben's really helped me with this in terms of how much sound you want to be exposed at once. And arguably, one of the most important parts is the music behind in the videos, but it's really difficult because everyone has their favorite song, so I'm always asking people what to use, but I can only use certain songs because of copyright. So I have to go on a YouTube page and figure out which songs are copyright and which aren't. So this part could take me anywhere from an hour to 2 hours just to find a song, and the song ends up being really simple, but figuring that out is really difficult, so that takes a lot of time. And then obviously picture is really important, because what you're showing is what people are watching, so that is really something that you have to have nailed down. Like I said, you don't want to get into a plane and then realize that you were looking at the back of someone's head the whole time. So having the not only experience with the cameras, but just a good plan has Ben helped me with. He would say, before you go on a flight, list out a plan of what you want to capture. And it was a little easier for him actually than it was for me when he came on that flight with us, because he had never really flown in a small plane before, so he knew which angles were really different. There were angles that my uncle and I were used to seeing every day of the airplane, but in my most recent video, you can see some different angles that I would never be able to get, and that's just because he has a different eye since he's never flown before. So that kind of helped me get started in that video. But if you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it. That's definitely my best one yet. And then the length was also really important because the beginning of the year, the first video I made of Millie was about 7.5 minutes or so. And as short as that sounds, it's kind of a long time. People, for some reason, don't have time to watch that long of a video. So you have to really figure out what you want to focus on and what the highlights are of the video. I've done a much better job as we've gone on here to keep them to about 3 to 4 to 5 minutes at most. So yeah, capturing people's attention is really the hardest part, and that comes with sound, picture, and length of the video. So my budget, there's a lot that goes into it, but a lot of it I've already owned before. I just wanted to include everything here. Like I said, I saved up to buy a new GoPro, and then I had that audio adapter, and then the clamp mount, and then a camera I've used, which I've always had. Then I just did the airplane fuel and flight lessons. I just wanted to include that because you have to. But yeah, it's an expensive hobby, so I'm really sure to make the most of it every time out. So thumbnails. A lot of people don't know what thumbnails are, and thumbnails are arguably like the title screen of the video. So essentially on YouTube, if you were to find my video, this is the first thing you would see before the video starts. And to me, this is the most important part, because if you have a good thumbnail, it's going to capture someone's attention, and that's going to bring them into my video. So that was the most recent one, Texas to New York Puppy's Journey. And I'm just trying to use like the best photo from each flight and enhance it, which is what I did with this one as well, Dogs and Diversions. That's the one where we went to Ithaca. And I actually didn't mention this yet, but when we went to Ithaca, we were supposed to go to a smaller airport outside of Ithaca, but it was so snowy and there was a big snowstorm happening and the visibility was terrible. So we actually had to do a missed approach, and we went into Ithaca, so we had to divert. So that name, Dogs and Diversions, just came right to me. So when we diverted, we had to contact the dog owner on the ground and tell him they had to meet us at Ithaca. So they drove an hour just to bring the dog there. But that was a pretty interesting flight. I have a good video on that one. And then the next thumbnail is flying across Connecticut. And as you can see, they're just different styles. Try to take the best picture and then really highlight it and capture people's attention, because that's the first thing they'll see with your video. This one was pretty cool. It's got me on a final approach into Danbury, and it says my first solo flight. So I don't know, maybe there's a little suspense there. I'm still alive, so I think it kind of gives it away. But I thought that one was pretty cool. And like I said, that's all that. I mean, no one was in the plane, so that's the GoPro capturing that photo. And so I was, I'm pretty lucky when I get great photos like that, because I'm just trusting that the camera's doing its thing. So yeah, it's really cool. And then spreading the awareness, which is arguably the hardest part of my project. You're probably asking yourself, what is there to spread awareness about? And it's not really just the animal flights, but it's also the fact that, especially, well, not as much at the moment with COVID, but there's been a huge pilot shortage in America in terms of airline pilots. And after this gets better, we all assume that aviation is going to go pretty close to back to normal. The numbers are already rising every day. There's a huge pilot shortage out there. So one of my biggest inspirations, Swain Martin, has a YouTube channel, and his is essentially to show young pilots or even older pilots who are just getting into it how much is involved, and really just spread what it's like to fly. And he's been my biggest inspiration in terms of people who I don't know, because he makes the coolest videos. He's really well known in the industry, and he's only like 23 years old. And it really inspired me. And my videos are sort of similar to his, but I focus a little bit on the animals too, and just sort of my own journey, because every pilot has a little bit of a different journey. So about midway through the year, I emailed about, 20 to 30, I don't want to call them famous people, but I guess for lack of a better term, famous social media people who are involved in either aviation or filmmaking. And a bunch of them actually responded, which I was really happy with. So the top right there is a picture of Christian LeBlanc's YouTube channel. He has 1.5 million YouTube subscribers, and he does travel videos. And that's sort of like, it connects with flying, but it's like traveling, which I love to do. And his videos are amazing, as you can see, as 1.5 million subscribers. He actually watched one of my videos and answered, and said he's really impressed with what I was able to do with just a few cameras and at a young age. And he has a really cool story. He had a 9-to-5 job, and he just decided, this isn't for me. So he literally, as bad as it sounds, he literally quit and decided to get a few cameras and really got his life together in a really cool way. He just travels the world and makes videos, and he's able to live off of that because his videos are so good. So I watched his and learned a lot from him. The middle there is Air France pilot. He flies a 777, which is a wide body airplane. It's huge. He answered. He has 280,000 YouTube Instagram followers, and he has a really big YouTube channel, which I've also watched a lot on. He watched one of my videos, and it was just a quick comment. He said like "good job" or something, but just seeing that he watched it was really cool. And then on the bottom is Fit to Fly Apparel. So I believe I have I'm gonna go skip ahead here. I don't know where it went. But Fit to Fly Apparel is an apparel company launched by a kid who goes to Auburn University, and he is studying aviation management there. And he started this brand to, it says right there, to connect health, confidence, and well-being to aviation. A lot of pilots are really into working out, so it kind of connects well with the aviation industry. But he actually sent me an Instagram message directly to me, asking me if I would wear some of his clothing brands in my videos to kind of sponsor him. And I would get like an incentive of, sales that he raised. I haven't done it yet, but I'm hoping to do that. I thought that was really cool that I was sort of sponsoring someone else. Because aviation is really a game of networking and who you can make connections with. So while I'm always asking people at Shepaug, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, it's not really just to have more subscribers, to have the label of that, but it's also to not even spread the awareness, but also to get noticed a little bit, because these people are also good at what they do because of the connections they've made. I kind of want to go into corporate aviation, which requires connections. So the more videos, more subscribers, the more attention they get. I'm not really doing it for myself. I'm doing it to try to make these connections with other people, because you never know what they could lead to. So as silly as it sounds, go subscribe to my channel. It's kind of just like a little helper point. When you have more subscribers, more people are likely to look at you, which opens up the door to many more opportunities. So that's kind of where that comes from. And so here's my YouTube channel as of a couple days ago. I'm trying to do the best I can, making it as professional looking as I can. So that's just sort of what you'll see if you go onto my channel. It has the video at the top is that most recent one, Texas to New York. That's kind of what I'm headlining now since it's the most recent. And then right under it is the dogs and diversions one, which was the Ithaca one. And then if you keep scrolling, you'll find the first one with Millie. And then I have, my other videos. So yeah, it's really cool. I love doing it. But yeah, that's my channel if you were to go look it up. And this is sort of an about me. I won't read it now, but it just says I'm an 18-year-old pilot in New England, and I love showcasing my journey and all stuff like that. So it's just a cool way. People do reach out to me every once in a while, and it's really neat to see. But yeah. Oh, here we go. Here's the message he sent me. It's a quick question right in the black there. Will you be interested in repping Fit to Fly apparel? I started it last year with the intent to bring a stellar leisure brand to the aviation industry. I love your content and think you would do extremely well with us. So that was really cool, just like I said, for him to reach out, because in my videos, if I were to wear stuff, we'd sort of both be helping each other. And he's a kid that goes to Auburn, so it's really neat that I've made that connection already. So I'm sure I'm likely going to do that next year when I go to Florida Tech, but I thought that was really cool. And that top part is my Instagram. I also use Instagram a lot to connect with my videos and my travels. Every time I do one of those animal flights, I do like a story of 10 different videos, quick clips of the flight, and that kind of introduces what I just did, so that way it brings some popularity to the video I'm going to upload. But I love doing that too. And then, so as Stints mentioned briefly in the beginning, I'll be continuing my aviation career and education in Melbourne, Florida, at Florida Institute of Technology. There's that photo again, thanks to Ben Allen. But I'm really excited. It's right in Melbourne, Florida, on the beach there. They have a great airport right next to the campus, and a great school. I'm going to study aviation management with flight. So that gets me a degree in not only professional flight, but also in the business side of aviation. God forbid anything went wrong health-wise, because pilots need to have perfect health. So I do have that background, which is really important. So that's a picture of the flight school, and under that bottom picture is a bunch of water. So I'm really excited to fly in the Florida area. Hopefully I won't be canceled every other day due to weather. I'm not done yet, but I want to do my thank yous now. So on the first day on the left, my mom, my dad, Uncle Ed, and Aunt Lori, who I think are here right now, my grandma and grandpa, who are also here, they sort of helped me, just push me to my passion, and really, that's really it. That's really all they do. But that's the most important thing, is they're always here for ideas, and they're always helping. And then Mr. Stinson, Mr. Ben Allen, like I said, every day I'm talking to both of them, and they help me so much, kind of professionalize my project. Oh, thank you, Miss Gambino. Miss Cal, I just got the notification. And then John Purdy and Zach Hosford are my two instructors. I was with John Purdy for a while there. He's in one of my first videos. He's I think he was about 75 years old, and he was in the military. He flew corporate jets for American Paper and credit card companies, and so he's older now. He has 33,000 hours of flight time, which is remarkable. And he's told me some amazing stories. He's been to every continent, every country. It's just really cool to see. And then Zach, he's a younger kid who also went to school in Florida. I've been flying with him lately due to COVID. John hasn't been back. But Zach has really helped me with the cross-country planning and all that stuff. And then Mr. Spear, almost every morning during school, I would go into his class, and he was always asking me questions and sort of getting me going for the day. And that really helps because you just need that little burst of energy in the morning. Then right side, all my friends, Owen, Lily, and Owen, you guys were always either A, giving me ideas, or B, helping me. There was a point right as COVID started, I had a lot of my videos on a computer at the school, so I needed to kind of connect them to my iPad to get them here since I wasn't able to go to the school. And Lily and Owen Moore were both able to help me get those videos, so thank you guys for that time. And then Carly, Nadia, Shark, Michael, Cole, Noah, Chris, and Eddie, you guys watch my videos pretty much first every time, so thank you. And you guys always give me your honest feedback, which is the most important feedback I could get. There's a lot more of you that watch my videos every time, but you guys were there every day for me to talk to, so that really helped. So thank you all very much. So I have a couple pictures from the past. This one, I don't think she's here right now. Carly's at work, but this is Carly and I flying my uncle's plane a few years ago. This is really cool. This one is Owen Hibbert and I a few years ago on Memorial Day. So I think it was actually already 5 years ago, but it's just cool to throw that photo in there. And then I can promise you it's not boring when you fly, as Owen could show here. He's actually sleeping because it's so soothing. But he's come with me a couple times. He loves it. And then I brought Lily about 2 months ago. She loves it. And if I've told you I'm bringing you in my uncle's plane with us, I'm not lying. I know it's taking a while, but there's high demand. So don't worry. If I've told you you're coming flying with me, I promise that's going to happen. So I made a new video, which I've been playing on all year. And I'm going to kind of show it right now. It's only 3.5 minutes. I hope you guys can hear it. But it's really to find your passion. And well, I'll show you for the rest of it. Hopefully you can hear it. It's really soft, but hopefully it comes through nicely on your computer. If not, turn the volume up. I'll put it on YouTube probably later this week so you can see it again. But it's only 3.5 minutes. So. So I realized as I was doing this project, and more so at the end, that I could have done a whole project on passion. As I said in the previous slide, find your passion and really do what you can to fly high with it, because if you do that, I mean, it's a simple quote, but if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. So I'm really trying to chase that, because I certainly love flying. So why do anything else? And that is all I've got for you. So.
Very good.
I'm going to unmute everybody, and if you won't have a question for him, if you could please raise your hand so that Jaden can see the screen, and I will let Jaden call on you so that we're not all talking at once. How's that sound?
So proud of you, Jake.
Thank you.
All right, so questions. If you raise your hand, anybody have a question for Jaden?
I know I didn't say everything so clearly, so I know some of you have questions.
Looks like Mrs. Gallo does, Jaden.
Yes, Ms. Gallo.
First of all, Jaden, great job. Really
Thank
great job. It's just so cool. And yes, I did subscribe to your channel while you were talking. Sorry if that distracted you.
No, all good.
Okay. Honey, I just wanted to know, you do a lot with your iPad, and that program is fascinating.
Yep.
If the internet went down, would you be able to do all hand calculations, and what does that look like?
Right, exactly. So that's big into what I was talking about with the flight planning. Everything I do there seems really redundant, because literally any information you need to find is on that iPad
Right.
app called ForeFlight. And a lot of the airline pilots, all the pilots use that app, and it shows you when you're in the air. It even shows you like how high you are and all that. But it really should be used as a backup, as you said, because if it were to fail, you have to know how to do everything by hand or with what you have in the plane. So the flight planning that I've been doing is really that first step, just so I know how to do that in case something were to happen with the iPad. So yeah, it's really like a backup.
And what kind of math do you use when you plan a flight?
I wish I could say calculus, but I can't right now. Yeah, it's a lot of basic math, but it's some of the calculations are pretty complex. You got, finding the wind velocity and the angle, and then you're gonna have to, steer the plane a little differently based on how the wind's pushing you. So there's a lot with the wind and simple math like that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Noah has a question, Jaden.
What's up, Noah?
So has the GoPro ever fallen from the window with that? And if it did, like, what did you do?
Okay, that's a good question. So they actually do make a bunch of GoPro mounts to go outside the outside the airplane, and I gotta get one. I gotta convince my uncle, but I gotta get one. I do want to hang it outside the airplane because I've seen some views and it's pretty amazing. But for all I've done so far, I've hung them inside the airplane, and sometimes they do fall, and I'm like, oh crap, come on, get back up there. But I've had pretty good luck with it. So yeah, I do fix it best I can during flight.
All right, Mrs. O'Neill has a question, Jaden.
Hi, Miss O'Neill.
Hey, Jay. So I have two questions. This is a two-parter.
Yep.
How many rescues have you done? Have you kept any? That's part of that one. I'm sure that's not a big hit at home, but just curious. And how do you fund the flights? I mean, like, who pays for those animal flights?
Yeah, so to answer that question first, since the Pilots and Pause is all volunteer, it's really a great donation from people like my uncle and all those pilots. So that, I mean, it's really self-funded, but my uncle often says the $2 hamburger on the ground just became the $100 hamburger when you fly to it. So it is pretty expensive, but if you do it right, you can kind of pace yourself. That guy, Swain Martin, I was talking about, went to college in North Dakota as a flight student, and he and 3 other friends bought a plane when they were in college, which seems really incredible, but he paced himself and he knew that he could afford it. So a lot of flying is done with what you can afford and what you can't, but a lot of planning. And then to answer your first question, I don't know the exact number of flights I've done. I was planning on doing more than 3 this year, but between the weather and Corona and everything, I was only able to do 3 big ones, but I think that helped me focus on each one more. But throughout my past, I know my uncle's done a lot of them, but I've probably done a couple dozen in my life. So, and we were relatively close to keeping the recent puppy Aragon with the wounded limb, but my mom is going to be having a tough time walking 2 dogs at once next year, so it was tough, but we were close to it.
Very cool. Good job, bud.
Thank you.
Mrs. Flaherty has a question, Jay.
What's up, Miss
Nice job, Jaden.
Thank
I
you.
want to just sort of go what Mrs. O'Neill was asking. You mentioned that it was an expensive hobby.
Mhm.
And had you thought about becoming a digital artist and selling your photos to help fund you, or really boosting that social media? How do you anticipate being able to get up to that level of some of those people that you got back that got to you?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that question because I actually forgot to mention during my presentation. When I go to school next year at Florida Tech, I don't even know if this is a possibility, but I would love to help the flight program advertise because it's not one of those big name schools. So I would love to help them advertise that program through my videos and photos. And maybe, I don't know, I'd be working for them, but hopefully they could help me out a little bit with the financial part of it. But studying it and taking photos and everything, I do want to sell them if I can. I don't know how to get started with that, but that photo that I showed early on that I took of the biplane passing by the other night in the Roxbury airport, I want to trade that one for a flight. And I actually believe it's Miss Segerson's brother who flies that plane. So it's all about connections. But yeah, I would love to sell some of my work or work for, like I said, Florida Tech and help advertise their program to get something back. But yeah, it's a lot of work planning wise.
Becca has a question for you, Jaden.
Hey, Becca.
Hi, Jay. I just was going to ask, what's your favorite flight maneuver to do? And
Good question. I like steep turns. I didn't think I would when I was doing them, but steep turns are 45-degree turns, which are, I don't know how many, very, very few, but you are pulling a G-force in there. And I didn't think I would like it as much, but when you're flying the airplane, I find you don't really think about that external stuff as much as you would as a passenger, and I really enjoy doing those. So that's something I'll have to do during my check ride. Some of those, I really like those, but I'm excited to fly with you.
Okay, Elisa has a question.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Jaden. Nice job. That was
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
I believe you said you only flew 4 hours during the nighttime. So I was wondering if you enjoyed it, or was it like really scary for you?
Yeah, so I've done 4 hours of night flight with an instructor, but I've done loads of night flights with my uncle, so I do have pretty good experience, which is why I only needed 4 hours with the instructor. But I love it. It's really different. One of the things that is really different is people think that from the air, the airports are going to be the brightest spot on the ground, but the way that lights are angled, they're actually the darkest spot. So it's all sorts of illusions that are really neat. But yeah, I like it a lot. I don't know if I have a preference, day or night, because you get such different views, but I love them both. So good question.
Good for
you.
Miss Youngblood has a question, Jay.
Hello.
Hey, you did a really good job. There are a
Thank
lot
you.
of seniors who are here to support you, and a lot of them haven't signed up yet. They're going to. Give them a tip. Like, what do they need to do, and maybe even extend that to the juniors if you've got a kernel of it.
Yep. You're not gonna like this answer, but I actually didn't practice this whole thing through because I knew A, if I practiced, I was not gonna spit the same thing out the second time, and B, I was able to run with it. But I know Stints is making a face right now, but my advice is to have a plan. Don't worry about the 45 minutes because you've done 8, 9, 10 months, even more in some cases, months worth of work. So don't let the 45 minutes distract you. Just start talking, and then, you're on Zoom, so even though there's a lot of people here, which I really appreciate, I don't see you all at once, so it's not, I really felt like I was talking to myself. So when you're preparing, put your slides together and think of what you're going to say. You don't have to necessarily practice the whole thing through 5 times, but think about what you're going to say. Have a plan. It doesn't all have to come out smoothly, but get your points across and back them up.
I
don't know. What's up?
You recovered a little bit in that answer, Jaden. I'll let it slide about the practicing because you and I were talking last night, so I know you did some practicing.
Every slide I knew what I was going to say, but if you really are confident in what you're talking about, I don't think you have to run through the whole thing 5 times. But if you do, you do. There's no problem with it. But know what you're going to say.
I do believe Mrs. Pody has a question for you.
Hello.
Hi, Jaden.
Hi.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
So when I was watching your video, the Find My Passion video, I was so impressed with how many places you've flown. Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know where my favorite place was that you flew. Mexico looks pretty fun. But I was wondering where was your favorite flight? Which flight?
I don't even know if I have an answer to that question. Every flight I love. Even the one in Ithaca, my mom was like a nervous wreck because we had to divert due to a weather thing. But you know, pilots like my uncle and I, we just love that, I guess, boost of adrenaline or that intensified focus. So whatever the flight is, I love them all. But
Okay.
I was pretty lucky to, I don't know, ever since I could remember, I've been kind of recording all my flights, like those commercial ones, and I knew I wanted to do something with it, so I was happy to take that all to one video. But yeah, it's really cool seeing. My TA, Ben, recommended I get a map and then pin each place I've been, so
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well done, Jaden.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Oh, and Hibbert has a question.
What's up, buddy?
Can we give him another round of applause, please? Come on.
Oh, James, number one fan. Thanks, buddy. Thank you all for coming. I'm sure some of you already skipped out by now, but I want to thank everyone for coming, taking time. I know it's hard on a Wednesday as things are getting more normal now, but I really appreciate the time and attention for that 45 minutes. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Incredible. Thank you.
Okay.
Good work.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jaden, do you got like 3 minutes once everybody's done that you and Ben and I can debrief?
Yep.
Not gonna take very long. You did a good job, kid.
Amazing. Bye.
Great
Thank
job,
you.
Jaden.
Bye, Jaden.
Bye.
Bye,
Good
guys.
job.
Good job.
Bye,
Thank you.
Jaden.
Great job, Jaden. Really
Thank you,
proud of
Scarlett.
you.
Appreciate
Really
it.
proud of you.
Thank you.